Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voices Beyond Borders, the podcast that explores everything related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as international education and exchange programs. My name is Francesco Bajos. I'm your host, and I'm so happy to be back for our fourth episode. Today's episode, titled Embracing Diversity, we're diving deep into the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We'll explore its significance in society, the challenges it faces, the current global climate around this topic, and as well, we're gonna shine a spotlight into the amazing role of the DISC, which is the Diversity and Inclusion Student Commons at Montana State University. Joining us today is a remarkable guest to bring the wealth of knowledge and experience in the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Please welcome Barbara de Amarel. Hi, Barbara. How are you?
Hello, Francesco. Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being our guest today. I know your experience and your knowledge will make this conversation very interesting. Barbara, so before we start, can you please briefly introduce yourself and share your background in the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
My name is Barbara do Amaral. I'm originally from the Azores, Portugal. And I've been in this country for nearly 38 years. That's the United States of America. And all of my entirety of my higher education has been through the American system education. And I did graduate with a doctorate in education, adult and higher education administration. So my experience in this system has been quite extensive, many years. So I bring that perspective of knowing how the system works and seeing the change that's taking place in this system. So my positionality is as one who came as a foreigner to this country and learned to integrate into the system, especially higher education.
Thank you, Barbara. And for our listeners and viewers, I have a very cool story to share of how I met Barbara actually. So as you all know by now that last year I did my master's degree at Montana State University. And before relocating and changing my entire life, I really thought to myself that I wanted to know more about diversity and equity and inclusion. So what I did is I went to the Montana State University website and I typed diversity and inclusion. And the first thing that popped up was the DISC, which is the Diversity and Inclusion Student Commons at Montana State University, which we'll be gonna talking about later on. But then I reached out to Barbara. I told her, hey, I'm moving to Montana. Can we please schedule a meeting? I wanna know more about the DISC and how I can be of help if possible. Literally the second day of me being in Montana, me and Barbara, we had a meeting. And guys, I don't know what happened. I think the stars aligned that day, or like someone was praying for me or something. But it was an instant connection with Barbara. We scheduled like a 30-minute meeting at first, and then we ended up having like an hour-long discussion about dreams, about life, about aspirations, about diversity, inclusion, and all of that. And that's how our story like began. And Barbara is someone who I truly respect and admire. She's an amazing person, as you will see from this episode today. And yeah, that's it. So are you ready to begin, Barbara?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So for our listeners who might not be familiar with what DE and I means, can you please provide us with like a brief explanation on what diversity, equity, and inclusion means?
Certainly, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak to you and your audience. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you.
The privilege is ours for sure.
Yeah, as you said, the connection was immediate, and I feel that connecting in spaces like this is really important. Most of us have an understanding, an internal understanding of what diversity and inclusion might be, even a definition of our own, right?
Sure.
Based on our own lived experiences. So depending on what environment you're talking about, if I'm talking about a higher education environment, I would say that diversity is seen as from the point of view of college students, right? And who they are and who they what they've experienced prior to coming to their academic experience. So that diversity of perspective becomes really an important ingredient in what we do in education, which is expose folks to different perspectives, different experiences, and hopefully we have individuals who are developing, um, you know, come to understandings that they didn't have before. So how we define diversity from that perspective is that we like to bring together lived experiences, different lived experiences, and make meaning out of that in the
Mm-hmm.
classroom, or even in how students engage in other uh, extracurricular activities. The inclusion part would definitely be tied into who are we bringing into the classroom, inclusion of not only perspective, but different cultural experiences, different, and if you go with race and ethnicity, inclusion of those perspectives and backgrounds is also very important. Um, but we see diversity and inclusion not being necessarily just from your outer perspective of how you define it, but you have an internalized understanding and dimension that diversity is also the invisible diversity of our own identities
Exactly.
that we
Yeah.
form. Yeah. So, depending on what your intent is in creating an environment that is inclusive and what you want to bring into that environment. As you can tell, I'm trying to say that diversity and inclusion is very subjective to the individual who is looking at it and the experience that they have.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Barbara, for this insight. And I think exactly just as you said, diversity and inclusion are really dependent on which context they are being discussed at. And it's every person, every individual can interpret it in a different way. My way of interpreting diversity is it doesn't relate to a certain religion or a certain ethnicity, nationality, gender, sexuality. For me, diversity is just being different and being who you are and that difference. And
Mhm.
inclusion is just fostering a sense of I respect you as a human being, no matter where you come from or who you are or what you've done in your past life. I respect you and I want to be your friend, and that's it.
Mhm.
Barbara, given the current global climate about diversity, equity, and inclusion, how do you feel that these conversations about these topics have changed or like evolved or devolved? And what role do you see that individuals or maybe institutions such as universities play in fostering this understanding and change?
Uh, with a question like that, it takes us, we need to look at how we used to look at diversity as more, especially in this country,
Mhm.
historically, it was more based on race, right?
True.
Color of skin. Um, so what I see is a shift from the outer appearance of diversity and to add to what you said just a few minutes ago, diversity and is recognizing the unique difference that we experience in each of our own worlds and inner identities. Um, so we've had a shift in our society, not just in this American society, but globally. I see that we've moved from the outer appearance and what we see with our eyes to an understanding and an awareness that diversity and unique difference is also in the inner world, our own identities. Uh, with that said, I think there's a greater level of awareness of self
Mhm.
in these different spaces that we enter and exist. And as human beings, and we say we are aware of our own identities, we also want to be valued. And that's the inclusion part, that we're looking for environments that we can work in, that we are valued for our perspectives, what we contribute as creative beings, um, but we're also included in that system
Mm-hmm.
of change, that system that makes decisions and creates opportunities for not only the self but others. So how do we get to a place that perspective that is influenced by culture, religion, or sexuality? How do we bring all of that together and say that what you have to contribute is just as worth the while as anyone else's? That's
So
where
true.
we are right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Uh, do you feel, especially in today's climate, that advocating for these topics, again, diversity, equity, inclusion, is challenging? Do you feel that by you being an advocate for such issues, you're putting yourself at harm's risk? Or do you feel like this is an obligation that you have to do it? If we want to live in the world that we envision, this is something that we have to go through.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Definitely, depending on geographically where we are.
Mm-hmm.
As an example, the state that I'm in is what we consider, in politically speaking, a red state. And their perspective on diversity and inclusion, or even anything to do with the progress that we've
Mm-hmm.
made, is seen as not necessarily in the interest, the best interest of where the political minds want to go. Um, so we do have challenges. We have barriers in how fast we can progress. It doesn't mean that we cannot. There are many
Mm-hmm.
ways to continue supporting, for instance, in this very specific situation, how we support our students. We don't remove support when we have challenges or pushback. We continue with the support of providing students the ability to connect to resources, the ability to um, have access to information that helps them understand self and others, right? We don't have to be out there causing any more clash
Mm-hmm.
with the political views. We remove the political aspect of it and we look at the human aspect. And what does a student need? Just as
Exactly.
much. Exactly. Like in your case, we connected because we spoke about things that matter to you individually. Um,
That's so
but
true.
yes, there is risk and
Mm-hmm.
threats and so on. But the work is important.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, Sabal Public Library, for giving us this amazing space that we're filming in for the duration of the season. Thank you so much, Sabal Public Library. This brings me to what's been happening in Lebanon actually for the past few weeks. For the past actually 5 years or so, Lebanon has made like huge improvement in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, in terms of respecting the other, regardless of of our religion, or our sexuality, orientation, gender, whatever. Until a couple of weeks ago, there's been going around like a hate speech, like if you're not X, or if you don't belong to an X group or like something, we don't want you here. And this has been
Mm-hmm.
causing a lot of controversy, not only online, but everywhere you go in the streets. And this
Mm-hmm.
brings me to the fact that we're still in, like in 2023, in the 21st century, we're still looking at a person for an external lens, if I may say. We're not looking at the person for who they are, for what they bring to the table, for how they contribute to society, but we're still judging people on, you're not like me, so I must hate you. You don't fit in into the stereotype that I have in my mind, then you must be evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where something like the disc, which we're gonna go to immediately after this, can come hand in hand, or like NGOs as well, like education. With
Mm-hmm.
proper education, with the proper information and proper knowledge, I think we can, as society, as humanity, we can grow to learn that being different doesn't specifically mean it's dangerous or it's bad. Being different is actually a source of and a source of innovation. Like
Mhm.
if as a society we want to grow, we want to reach that next level into being the best of what we can or best to offer, we have to accept all of these differences in our society.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think both your state where you come from and Lebanon are very similar in that sense.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
still, we still have a long way to go, but I'm 100% sure that with proper education and just a little bit of patience, that's very achievable.
Education, and I believe that
Mhm.
it's not just what you learn in a classroom, but understanding that being near someone who has different perspectives or even sexual
Mhm.
orientation does not mean that you should feel threatened. The feeling,
100%.
exactly. So the threat to individuals who are not sure what to do with the information they're getting or perceiving, they feel that their central or their core values might be challenged. And
Yep.
being around diversity doesn't mean that you should be in that place. We get into the place of allyship. Allyship means that you are lifelong, you support those individuals who have different perspectives or different sexual orientation than yourself, but you yourself are central or centered, positioned in a place where your core values are still intact. It,
100%. Yes.
and the problem comes political, religious, cultural, is that individuals as human beings, we feel at times threatened. What do we do with that information? Do we
Mhm.
have to change who we are? And it doesn't mean we have to change who we are. It just means we expand our understanding of other perspectives.
That's it. I think you just explained it. Expanding our understanding. That's
Mm-hmm,
just what we need today. Just
mm-hmm,
seeing a little bit further, or like seeing a little bit the bigger image of who we are as people, as a species, and everything else is very trivial, honestly. It's
mm-hmm.
it's that simple.
Right.
Okay, Barbara, now I want to talk about my favorite part, which is the disc.
Yeah,
So
the
to our
disc.
listeners and viewers, the disc is the Diversity and Inclusion Student Commons at Montana State
Mhm.
University. I'm gonna let Barbara talk about it more, but Barbara, as you know, and as I know as well, like this institution or like this place plays a vital role in MSU. Can you please share a little bit of its mission, its programs, initiatives, and how it is contributing to creating a more harmonious and a more diverse community on campus?
Sure. Diversity and Inclusion Student Commons, as we call affectionately the DISC. Um, yeah, it has a multi-purpose mission. The mission is to raise awareness of diversity and inclusion and to help students and individuals think critically about diversity. What that means is you have not only to look at yourself internally, self-reflect on your own identities and think about it critically. You look at other folks and you engage with them and you create dialogue, opportunity for dialogue. So the disc, uh, it's an actual physical space that students can use to come in, relax, meet other students, have conversation, and that happens between classes. They also have meetings in that space. So we have a physical space, but we also have a mission of education and raising awareness, as I said. And in that we have programs. In these
Mhm.
programs, we have one particular program that focuses on creating better allyship practices towards the LGBTQ community. And what do we do with that? We have workshops where folks come voluntarily, nothing about it is required. Uh, but we teach folks on terminology and we also talk about what a good ally looks like.
Mhm.
And it's really important for the entire community, not only students, but faculty and staff will come to these workshops. and they have an opportunity to ask questions and understand that it's not a threat to learn more about a
That's so true.
community, right, that they don't
Mm-hmm.
understand. And they feel safe in delving into a topic that perhaps they had never considered before. And they come out of those workshops feeling more empowered to help someone who might identify in that community. So we do the education piece. We also have an ambassador program, uh, and that is designed for students who are more inclined to looking at diversity and inclusion as a potential career
Mm-hmm.
or volunteering in such areas. So we allow the students opportunities to engage with diversity and inclusion topics. Um, Discourse and dialogue being one of the primary ones. And going into that, we have another program we call Discourse and Nuggets. And I have to
Yes,
say
I
that
know
your
that.
beloved Francisco, you want to say something about that?
Well, I think it was the third day which we met. It
Mhm,
was Barbara and I and our dear, dear friend Tierney. If you're listening, hi. I
mhm,
think we were meeting at the desk and you were like putting all the events you want to do for the semester.
mhm,
And there was one special event that's like an open dialogue about certain diversity, equity, and inclusion topics, but you were struggling a little bit with the name.
mhm.
And at the same time, we were discussing what type of food do we want to bring. And I suggested, why don't we get chicken nuggets from McDonald's? And that's how the name Discourse and Nuggets came to be because
Right.
of my love and adoration for McDonald's McNuggets. But yeah, it's an event that's truly amazing. I know I've been privileged to have attended few of the events last semester and the semester before that. And trust me, guys, I'm not just saying this because Barbara is my guest or because I know her personally, but the amount of conversations, enlightening conversations, and education that happens between those four walls is eye-opening and life-changing. I, as an
Mhm,
individual coming from Lebanon, again, it's a place full of diversity, but I have never thought that just being present around different people from maybe different backgrounds, personalities, gender, sexuality, everything would open me up to the world in such a way. Again, as you just said, broadening our horizons or like our understandings of other doesn't come automatically. We have to
mhm,
put in the effort. And one of those efforts can be just sitting in the corner and listening to conversations happening, seeing the struggles of other people, their happy moments, their opportunities, what they want out of life, their aspirations. Just makes you think at the end of the day, like, we all literally are the same. We all have the same dreams. We all have the same fears. And we're just all trying to navigate this big, scary world one day at a time. And this puts a lot of things into perspective.
mhm,
So, literally, Barbara, I want to thank you personally for changing my entire perspective about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know I personally have learned a lot throughout my year with you. And I'm 100% sure that the work you've been doing at the desk and you're still doing at the same time is changing a lot of lives. And if anyone listening or viewing us today is interested in knowing more about the desk, I'm gonna be putting a link to their website, which you can go
mhm.
check their events, check their news, and give them a follow and support as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this. And you said it really well. Touching one person at a time is really what the work should be about.
Mhm.
Um, and the rest will follow.
That's so true. Okay, Barbara, as we were just talking, creating inclusive space and environment is a lot of effort. In your own personal opinion and based on your expertise, which type of strategies or approaches do you feel are most effective when creating such an environment where individuals from different backgrounds, different everything can come and feel valued and appreciated?
Mhm, mhm. It's not going to be a big discovery. A strategy that should be used is one where you bring people together,
Mhm.
where they feel safe, right? And the best way to do that is with events that involve food and music. It's one of the most
Yes.
basic ways that we can make individuals feel welcomed, relaxed, and able to communicate with one another. So not only do we look for the event or the opportunity to bring people together with foods, uh, during that time when people are together, start sharing about culture and experiences. In essence, what you're creating is an opportunity for dialogue. Anytime you can use a strategy that brings people together where they feel safe to talk to one another, that is the way. That is the strategy, um, to bring that best practice for inclusive environments. If you don't have people talking to each other, you won't achieve the inclusive environment. And as you said earlier, just a few minutes ago, that in within those four walls, you just at times you just sat there and you
Mhm.
were listening to other folks talk, but you were processing what you were hearing. You were,
Exactly.
yeah, you were allowing it to sit within you and understand based on your own lived experiences. How do I fit this? How do I fit it in my own understanding? So I tell you, the best strategy is to bring people together where they feel safe to talk to one another.
It's just that simple, guys.
It's that
And
simple.
one of the main reasons I created this podcast is because I wanted to be a platform where different opinions, diverse opinions, thoughts, and everything can come together in a civilized way where
Mhm.
adults can come together, have conversations about heavy topics without the fear of being judged or misinterpreted in a sense. And I really want this podcast, I really want this platform to be a safe space for everyone to be able to express themselves in a way that they may not be able in their day-to-day lives. So if anyone is listening to us today, or again viewing us, know that this podcast is here to amplify your voices. And if you have any concern or anything, you can always share it with us, and we will do our best to get professionals and experts who can help you or can help us grow as individuals and create a more harmonious and equitable society and community. And this wraps up the new episode of Voices Beyond Borders. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it informational and beneficial as well. If you liked it, please make sure to subscribe and follow us on social media because there's a lot of more episodes coming very soon. My name is Francesco Bajos, I was your host, and this is Voices Beyond Borders.